Prevention of Organised Crime Act is not effective in combating organised crime, money laundering and criminal gang activities. That's according to Dr Delano van der Linde from the Northwest University. In a study, van der Linde says numerous communities live in constant fear as gang members continue to wreak havoc. He joins us now from our Cape Town studios. Dr Delano, thanks a lot for joining us this evening. I mean, quite interesting findings that you've got there. You're really questioning the effectiveness of the Prevention of Organised Crime Act, and you say that there are actually constitutional and textual inadequacies that could perhaps be sorted out. Just take us through your findings.
First of all, thank you for having me. One of the biggest issues was the fact that the Prevention of Organised Crime Act is so similar to the common law. And the common law was found to be so ineffective in battling organised crime. The Prevention of Organised Crime Act really adds nothing to the arsenal of the state. And the state has a constitutional duty to protect its inhabitants in terms of Section 12(1)(c) of the Constitution. And by not enacting legislation properly dealing with this problem, there's a huge constitutional failure on behalf of the state.
I mean, of course, your findings are increased by the fact that, we've seen a surge in terms of gang-related murders, specifically in the Western Cape. Some of these stats are saying that about 21.6% of all murders committed in the Western Cape are attributed to gangs. So clearly somewhere there's not even enough harsher punishment for gang-related crimes. And where is it that we can salvage the matter there?
First of all, it's quite shocking that 21.6% of murders are attributed to criminal gang activities. I think if it was another cause that caused so many murders, that we would be in a total state of shock. I think that the state really has to try and intervene with harsher mechanisms. Like the punishments are ranging from 3 to 8 years, or an alternative of a fine even, for gang activity. And that's quite shocking, that only 3 to 8 years are allocated for gang criminals or gang activities. And also alternative of a punishment of a fine. And this doesn't really disrupt the criminal structure of gangs. If you want to dismantle the structure of gangs, you really have to increase the punishments and also make it easier for the state to prove these crimes. At the moment, the Prevention of Organised Crime Act is so onerous on the state to prove. Criminal defense lawyers can easily get their clients off. And then the state just relies on the usual common law crimes to jail gang members.
But of course, at the helm of this is the fact that, unfortunately, it's the innocent bystanders that get caught in the crossfire when it comes to gang-related violence or crimes. And another part is that community members become then disheartened when it comes to reporting any form of gang-related crime, because they feel as though the criminal goes into jail, they're able to get up quickly. You pointed to 3 to 8 years, and then everything happens all over again. And at the helm of it is the risk of their own lives or even their families being threatened.
Yes, that's quite troubling. Gang violence actually, I think, is the highest contributor to innocent bystanders being murdered, children being shot at schools. I've read last year about teachers who had strokes at schools. Even 2 teachers had strokes at the same school. Witnesses are being murdered who testify in gang trials, and it makes it so difficult for the state to prove these crimes because of the elimination of witnesses also, but the intimidation of the inhabitants of particularly the Cape Flats communities, that's extremely sad. It makes them despondent and it makes them angry because nothing is seen to be done. In fact, gang crime has increased since the Prevention of Organised Crime Act was promulgated. It has not decreased. Yeah. And often there's reports by the state of so many people have been arrested in connection with gang crime, but these people are never successfully prosecuted. We need immediate amendment to the text of POCA and even new laws to better combat gang activities because POCA is not effective in its current form.
Well, Dr. Delano, if I may, I mean, you're talking about how we need to start looking perhaps at a foreign and international law as a form of intervention with our current existing practices. And I mean, you're pointing to the fact that POCA, for example, relies heavily on previous cases to be able to make some form of judgment. And you can't be relying on previous cases, especially as new forms of crime come up on a consistent basis. But also, there are new strategies to crime anyways, especially when it comes to gangs.
Yes, first of all, it's quite difficult to rely on previous crimes to prove a pattern of criminal gang activity. And that's really what inhibits the state from successfully prosecuting gang activities. They have to rely on this pattern of criminal gang activities, a repeated nature of the crimes, relying on old crimes. It's a heavy evidentiary burden. Now, there are strategies in international law and in other foreign jurisdictions which make it a bit easier to target gang members. For example, you have control orders which make it possible for a prosecutor to garner evidence against a certain gang member. It's not a criminal conviction, but he is prohibited from entering certain areas or doing certain things that is at risk to the community. If he does enter the area or do these things that endanger the community, that will be a criminal offense, and it's a much lighter burden on the state. There's also something under international law, and I won't go too much into it, which holds the leader of a criminal or civil organization liable for the crimes that their subordinates committed under their control and failing to control a dangerous situation. That would also be advantageous to hold gang bosses or high figures responsible. Well,